Good morning and welcome to the World Shoot 10, the 10th World Competition of International Black Shooting Confederation.
Hello and welcome to World Shoot 10, the 10th IPSC World Championship. This competition was held in England at the Bisley Ranges, the largest range complex in Europe. The event was opened by Jeff Cooper, the founder of Practical Shooting.
I would like to declare the 10th World Shoot officially open at such time as you hear the firing of the 6-pounder gun. Now, if the 6-pounder gun does not fire, it will be open 5 minutes after we try. So, good luck to you all, and may the best man win.
World Shoot 10 was the largest practical pistol competition ever organised. There were 550 competitors with teams from over 27 countries taking part. Over a 5-day period, 34 stages were shot to decide this championship. Unfortunately, the weather was not always as good as it could have been. In fact, it rained so much at times that the competitors might have been better off wearing wetsuits. The competitors had a very busy schedule with no rest days. Each one of them had to shoot an average of 7 stages a day to keep up. This is a good time to explain the principles of IPSC shooting for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. Practical shooting measures both accuracy and speed, so a good balance of both is required for success. The shooter's score is calculated by dividing the number of points scored by the time taken in seconds to make the score. The result is called the hit factor. The higher your hit factor, the better. All practical shooting stages are timed and have a minimum number of required hits, usually 2 per target. If you shoot more than 2 shots on a target, the best 2 scores are recorded and the rest are ignored. The number of shots you fire is up to you, but of course, the more you shoot, the longer it takes. The IPSC target is an outline, like this one. There are 4 scoring areas called A, B, C and D. The score you get for a hit depends on the power of your bullet. We call this the power factor. It's calculated by taking the bullet weight in grains multiplying it by the velocity in feet per second and dividing the result by 1000. If the value is 175 or more, the bullet is in major class. If it's between 125 and 174.99, it's called minor, and if it's less than 125, your scores will not be counted. Major scores are 5 points for an A, 4 for a B or a C, and 2 points for a D. Minor scores are different though. You still get 5 points for an A, but you get 3 points for a hit in the B or C zone and 1 for a hit in the D zone. You must declare your power factor, and very often you will be required to submit some samples of your ammunition for testing. At World Shoot 10, all competitors were checked. Here you can see Rob Latham's ammunition being tested.
Oh, I got a magazine. How much they weigh this time? Yeah, it's loud too. Do you have your muffs on? Okay. It's real loud. Okay. On your board. Told ya.
181.8 is your power factor. You've made it. You're all right.
Oh, I just wondered what the speed was. This I'm using
1592, 1560, 1590.
Right, so I have to
Well, I think that's all you need to know, so let's sit back and enjoy the action.
I have to weigh the hill over to make sure I made it.
That's your guarantee.
Alright, thanks.
Thank you.
Do you want these back?
See you guys. What's that?
Do you want those back?
Keep them as souvenirs. Never seen them.
This stage has everything, including a helicopter. You start sitting in the chopper facing the bank. Your gun is holstered in condition 1. On the beep, you engage the 2 visible targets and run forwards through the swing doors into the bank. There are another 14 targets in here, including 2 bobbers started by you opening the door. 4 of the targets are no-shoots. The shoot targets can be engaged in any order, and a minimum of 24 hits are needed. Our first shooter is Merle Eddington from the USA. Merle's time was 16.27 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 7.01. This put him in second place on this stage. This is Robbie Latham, 3 times IPSC World Champion and 6 times US PSA Champion.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Rob took 16.66 seconds and he had a hit factor of 5.88. This is Colette Barnes from the UK. She is the current European Ladies Champion and she finished second overall in this competition. Colette took 20.67 seconds and she had a hit factor of 5.18. And here's Kippy Boykin from the USA. Kippy was the 1992 US PSA Ladies Champion, and she finished second in World Shoot 9.
Are you ready? Stand by.
She did that in 22.11 seconds, and she had a hit factor of 4.75.
Two eyes.
Next up is Bob Dunkley from the UK. Bob has won the European title 3 times and has notched up an impressive total of more than a dozen British Championship wins.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Bob took 18.31 seconds and he had a hit factor of 5.57. And now, let's watch Matt McClure's winning run. Matt is the current US PSA champion.
Are you ready? Stand by.
That was an excellent run. He did that in 14.92 seconds with a hit factor of 7.37. Afterwards, we asked Matt to talk us through the run. This is what he said.
The first 2 targets are basically, just draw the gun and shoot good hits. And get as fast as you can to the door. Stay low going through the doorway because you've got to go into a rope anyway.
Do you have trouble? That was quite low bar.
No.
No.
We stay in shape.
Good.
Back home. And after you go through the rope, might as well stay low again because you've got to go through another one.
Yeah.
So we shot the next 4 targets low and went under the rope immediately and reloaded and went to the end and finished it. And fortunately for me, when I got to the end, the Barbers were in good position, so I didn't have to wait.
This is a speed shoot, but with a difference. You start on your back on a trolley under a car. Your gun is in condition 1, but in a toolbox out of your reach. You start yourself by pressing a button over your head and must then pull yourself out from under the car, retrieve your gun and engage the 5 targets. It's pure speed but from an awkward angle. Let's watch how it's done.
Load and make ready.
We start with the current Spanish champion.
Okay.
He did that in 4.97 seconds and he had a hit factor of 9.26. Next we have Jesus Garcia Infantes, another member of the Spanish team. He had a really fast time of 3.99 seconds, but his hit factor was 7.27. Another competitor from Spain, this time Maria Fernandez Moreno. Maria's time was 5.04 seconds, and she had a hit factor of 8.93. This is Ivor Runyons from Canada. Ivan's time was 4.24 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 11.32. This is a field stage. You start at A, gun holstered in condition 1. You're facing the targets with your hands on the wall. On the signal, you engage the 10 shoot targets in any order with 2 shots on each, taking care not to hit the no-shoot targets. The problem is that most of the targets are behind a wall and can only be seen through 3-foot diameter pipes. These are set at varying heights. They get nearer to the ground as you go from left to right. Our first competitor is Norma Jamasali from the Philippines ladies team.
Shooter, are you ready? Stand by.
She did that in 11.11 seconds with a hit factor of 7.92. Next up is Christopher Laxon, also from the Philippines.
Shooter, are you ready? Stand by.
Christopher's timing was 11.31 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 7.96. Here's Rob Latham.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Rob took 9.84 seconds and had a hit factor of 9.45. Next up is the Jet. Jethro had the fastest time with 8.92 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 10.54. And finally, the stage winner, Jerry Barnhart.
Ready? Stand by.
His time was 9.18 seconds and his hit factor was 10.57. This is a classic speed shoot. You start in box A in the surrender position facing the targets. There is a bank of 6 targets, all facing away. On the beep, the bank faces for 1 3/4 seconds. That's right, I did say 1 3/4 seconds. In that time, you have to draw your gun and put 1 round on each target. The second run is exactly the same as the first. This stage is scored by adding the totals of the 2 runs together. Let's take a look at how a couple of shooters from France tackle this stage. His score was 30.55. He scored 29.46. Next up is Warren Richards from the Republic of South Africa team. Warren scored 44.75 on this stage. This young man is still a junior, and he's somebody we're going to see an awful lot of in the future. Romain scored 36 points. Next up is David Wessels from the Republic of South Africa. David scored 32.74 points. Finally, this is Gary Heltman. He's also from the Republic of South African team. Gary scored a very respectable 51.28 points. This one's a field stage. You place your gun in condition 1 on the dummy along with any spare ammunition you think you may want. You start sitting on a bench at position A. On the signal, you have to push your way through the hanging tyres, which simulate a crowded station. You then have to run to the dummy and retrieve your gun. You then engage targets 1 to 4. After this, you engage targets 5 and 6 and the 3 poppers. The time stops after the last shot. Most shooters leave the spare mag on the dummy, so if they need a reload they have to go back to the dummy and get it. This of course adds to their time. Getting through the tyres quickly and in one piece is what matters with this stage. After that it's a fairly straightforward shoot. 1 or 2 people really got hit on the head doing this, and one shooter almost lost his contact lens. Let's watch a few runs. First up is Norma Jamasali from the Philippines.
Are you ready? Stand by.
She completed that in 12.75 seconds with a hit factor of 6.82. Next up is a colleague of Norma's, Valerie Lavanza, also from the Philippines. Valerie's speciality is steel shooting. Valerie's time was 16.63 seconds and she had a hit factor of 5.29. And here's Robbie Latham.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Rob had an excellent start, but unfortunately a magazine problem left him with a time of 21.64 seconds and a hit factor of 4.11. Here's Angus Hobdell from the UK. He's won a number of European championships, including the French Open.
Are you ready? Stand by.
This was the fastest run of the stage with a time of 9.27 seconds. Angus had a hit factor of 9.28. This earned him second place on this stage. Finally, let's watch Todd Jarrett's winning run.
Quiet, please.
Todd won the US PSA Championship in 1992.
Are you ready? Stand by.
He did that in 9.54 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 9.33. This is another speed stage. You start with your gun holstered in condition 1. You have a pool cue in your hand and a ball sits on top of a spring in the middle of the table. To start, you play the ball, then draw and put one shot into each of the 6 targets. The clock stops after the last shot. As you will see, there are some pretty fast times here. First on this stage is Doug Koenig, winner of World Shoot 9. Doug did that in 2.74 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 9.85. Next up we see Matthew McClern, with the run that put him in second place on this stage. Matthew's time was 2.49 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 11.25. This is Merle Eddington from the United States. Merle's time was 3.02 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 9.27. Finally, let's take a look at Rob Latham's stage-winning run. He did that in 2.48 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 11.29. One of the things we take very seriously in practical shooting is safety. Each stage is supervised by 2 range officers who control the shooting. The range officer may refuse to allow a competitor to shoot if he thinks that his equipment or his technique is unsafe, or if the range officer feels the competitor is unfit to compete. As a result, practical shooting is a very safe sport. If at any time a competitor does something which the range officer considers to be dangerous, such as dropping his gun, pointing it in an unsafe direction, or accidentally discharging it, he may be disqualified on the spot, not just from the stage, but from the whole match. No, it's not what you're thinking. It's not that sort of stage at all. You start with your gun in the usual position. Your position, however, is not so usual. You are seated in a passport photo booth, a real working one at that. You have your hands on your knees. The RO starts you by pressing a button on the outside of the booth. This sets off the camera flash, so if you're looking at it, you won't see much for a while after that. As soon as this happens, you exit the booth and engage the shoot targets in the newspaper stand in front of you. When you've done that, you run down the left side of the stand to a barricade and shoot at a set of targets in a railway coach. There are 2 poppers in front of the coach and 1 static and 2 bobbers inside it. The catch is that the poppers start the bobbers, so you have to get the shoot sequence right or you'll lose valuable time waiting for the bobbers to reappear. This was the one stage where it didn't pay to go first. First up again is Doug Koenig.
Are you ready? Stand by.
See what I meant earlier about the timing of that bobber? Doug had a time of 11.34 seconds and he had a hit factor of 7.14. Here's Angus Hobdell from the United Kingdom Gold Team. He finished 14th overall in this competition.
Shootout. Are you ready? Stand by.
That took 11.56 seconds and he got a hit factor of 7.44. This is Matthew McClern.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Matthew took 11.41 seconds and he had a hit factor of 7.45. Finally, here's Andy Haynes from the United Kingdom Gold Team.
Shootout. Are you ready? Stand by.
Andy did that in 12.18 seconds and he had a hit factor of 6.73. You are seated in a barber's chair with your gun holstered in condition 1. You are covered by a barber's cape. To make matters worse, you have your backs to the targets, one of which is turned away. There is no audible start signal. You move when the target appears. The kindly organisers, however, don't expect you to have eyes in the back of your head, and they do provide you with a mirror so you can see the targets. At least one person didn't react to the turning target and just sat there waiting for the beep. His time wasn't good. You have to get up, knock the head off the mickle-lick with your strong hand, untangle yourself from the sheet, draw and engage the targets with 2 shots on each. If you don't knock the head off the mickle-lick, you're going to get a penalty of 10 points. From here on in, it's a simple speed stage. Our first shooter is Eddie Testa from France. Eddie did that in 4.1 seconds and he had a hit factor of 6.59. Next in the chair is Clint Rafferty from the Republic of South Africa. He had a time of 4.18 seconds and a hit factor of 8.13. Finally, let's watch how Warren Richards, also from the Republic of South Africa, did. He finished 11th overall in this competition. That took Warren 4.04 seconds and he had a hit factor of 9.16. This is a speed shoot. You start with your gun holstered in condition 1, sitting on a motorbike. We call this stage Norton, but if you look carefully you'll see it's really a BMW bike, but who's counting? On the start signal you engage target 1, target 2 and the pepper popper. You cannot leave the bike until the popper falls. After this you move to area B and engage the other targets in any order, making sure you don't hit the bobber. In addition to the usual penalties on this stage, I'm told that if you hit the bike, you'll be arrested by the Metropolitan Police, who kindly provided it. Our first shooter on the bike is Giovanni Barber.
Stand by!
He did that in 9.63 seconds with a hit factor of 6.23. Next up is Gianluca Bernardi.
Are you ready? Stand by!
He got a time of 11.04 seconds with a hit factor of 5.89. Let's take a look at how Stefanos Heropoulos from Greece tackled this stage.
Are you ready? Stand by!
That took him 11.56 seconds with a hit factor of 5.54. This is an interesting one. You start with your hands in a basin of cold water beside a row of doors. Your gun is holstered in condition 1. On the signal, you draw and then open the doors one by one, or kick them in if you prefer. There are 2 or more full or partial targets behind each door, some of which are no-shoots. In one of the cubicles, all are no-shoots. As always, there's a catch. Between shooters, the RO goes around the back and swaps the targets around, so you never know what you're going to find when you open those doors. Let's take a look and see how some of the competitors did. First up, with her hands in the freezing cold water, is K-Clot Mikuluk.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Kay did that in 12.93 seconds with a hit factor of 5.34. This sort of performance shows why she came first overall in the ladies section in this competition. Next we have Jerry Barnhart.
Stand by.
Jerry did that in 10.17 seconds and he had a hit factor of 6.78. Finally on this stage, this is Jeremy White from the United Kingdom. Jeremy did this in 9.38 seconds and he had a hit factor of 7.24. This is not a stage for landlubbers. You start sitting in a boat, floating in a 3-foot deep tank of water. Your gun is holstered and in condition 1. On the start signal, you draw your gun and engage targets 1 and 2 and both of the poppers while still in the boat. You can then move to area 1 or 2 to engage the rest of the targets. And first up, we have Jeremy White from the United Kingdom.
Ready. Stand by.
Jeremy did that in 10.52 seconds and he had a hit factor of 8.75. This is Todd Jarrett with the run that gave him second place on this stage. Todd did that in 8.83 seconds and he had a hit factor of 12.01. Next in the dinghy is Jethro Dinosio from the Philippines.
Are you ready? Stand by.
The Jet did that in 10.67 seconds and he had a hit factor of 9.75. And finally, this is Matthew McClure's run, which put him in third place on this stage.
Stand by.
Matthew did that in 9.31 seconds and he had a hit factor of 11.49. This is a speed shoot. You start off sitting at a table with your gun in condition 1 in a drawer. You are holding a pack of cards in both hands and your elbows are on the table. There are 13 partial IPSC targets attached to the table, 4 of which are no-shoot targets. On the signal, you retrieve your gun from the drawer and place 1 hit on each of the shoot targets. This stage is not as easy as it looks because some of the targets are at an awkward angle and appear to be partially turned away. First up we have Dean Notley from the UK Gold Team.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Dean did this in 3.71 seconds with a hit factor of 11.86. This earned him 4th place on this stage. This was a really quick stage, so let's take a look at this again in slow motion. Next up is Jerry Barnhart from the USA.
Are you ready? Stand by.
His time was 4.02 seconds and he had a hit factor of 10.45. The next shooter we're going to see is Angus Hobdell. Angus is also a member of the UK Gold Team.
Stand by.
His time was 3.79 seconds and he had a hit factor of 11.35, leaving him to finish in 6th place on this stage. Watch again in slow motion how smoothly he retrieves that gun. And finally, another member from the UK Gold Team, Graham Lucas.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Graham had to come back and shoot 2 targets again, leaving him with a time of 5.39 seconds and a hit factor of only 5.20. Once again, we had assistance from London's Metropolitan Police, who loaned us the van for this stage. Incidentally, a relief is what the British police called a shift, hence the title. You start seated in the rear of the van. Your gun is holstered in condition 1. When you hear the start signal, you have to go forward and engage targets 1 and 2 through the driver's window. You then come back, open the rear door if you haven't done so already, and engage targets 3 and 4 from inside the van. Finally, you exit the van and engage targets 5 through to 7. All targets require a minimum of 2 hits on each one. First on this stage is Vanessa Duffy from the United Kingdom. She's a member of the Blue Team, a group of shooters who all come from law enforcement within this country.
Are you ready? Stand by.
She did that in 21.24 seconds and had a hit factor of 2.87. Next, we have Shirley Hamilton from the United States ladies team.
This way?
It's fine. If you're okay like that, put them back towards you slightly.
Oh, you can? Okay, you just
Fine.
need
Are you ready? Stand by.
Her time was 14.75 seconds and a hit factor of 4.41. This is Kay Clark-Michalak, also from the US ladies team. Kay finished first overall in the ladies section of this competition.
Are you ready? Stand by.
She did that in 12.23 seconds and she had a hit factor of 5.23. Finally, this is Frances Lovell from the UK silver team.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Frances's time was 11.27 seconds and it had a hit factor of 5.95. This is a field stage with plenty of action. You start on the steps at position A. Your gun is holstered and in condition 1. On the start signal, you engage targets 1 and 2 from the steps. Next, you move to the top of the steps and engage the poppers number 1 through to number 5. You then move to point B and engage poppers number 6 through to number 10 through a small window. Finally, you move to the end of the bridge and shoot at targets number 3 to number 5. There were some very good runs on the bridge, so let's watch a few. The first shooter we see is Jan Verdon from the UK.
Are you ready? Stand by.
She did that in 30.84 seconds with a hit factor of 4.54. Here's Betty Jo Ratcliffe from the USA.
Are you ready? Stand by.
That took her 20.54 seconds and she had a hit factor of 7.25. Our next shooter is Keikart Mikulak from the US ladies team.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Stand by.
Her time was 19.67 seconds, and she had a hit factor of 7.47. Next to the line we have Dean Notley.
Are you ready? Stand by.
That was run in 14.97 seconds with a hit factor of 10.02. The last shooter is Rob Latham with a terrific run that earned him first place on this stage. Rob's time was 13.9 seconds with a hit factor of 10.65.
Time, fastest time, 13.90.
This excellent run earned him the admiration of everybody watching. Let's watch part of his run again in slow motion. Watch how he moves on while the poppers are still falling. This stage tests your accuracy, speed and nerve. You start with your gun holstered in condition 1 with your back to the targets. On the start signal, you turn and engage the popper. This is a 30-meter shot and you must knock it down before you can shoot any other target. If you miss it and start to run, you have to come back to the box and try again. This happened to a number of people. Once you've dealt with the popper, you run downrange, shooting at the targets in the booths and at the 2 partially obscured targets near the popper. You may shoot the targets in any order you wish, and you need to put 2 hits on each. This is Stephen Allery from the United Kingdom.
Bye.
Stephen did that in 26.94 seconds and he had a hit factor of 4.01. Next, we have Matt McClure Those misses on the popper took him out of contention on this stage. His time was 19.89 seconds, and Matt had a hit factor of 5.83. Next up is Angus Hobdell from the UK.
Are you ready? Stand by.
He did the run in 19.89 seconds, the same time as Matt McClure. Angus had a hit factor of 5.86. Let's watch a standard class shooter next.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Giovanni took 26.09 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 4.79. Now, let's watch Todd Jarrett's stage-winning run.
Are you ready? Stand by.
His time was 19.17 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 6.63. Although he wasn't the fastest, he did get the best score. The fastest shooter of this stage was Rob Latham.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Rob had an excellent time of 18.91 seconds with a hit factor of 6.50, which was slightly lower than Todd's. We asked Rob to talk us through this stage.
Well, the whole stage here is, of course, to try to hit the popper. I was scared to death that if you miss the popper and start taking steps, that it would ruin your time. Look what it did at Doug. You know, he's probably quicker than I am in the running part of it, but tragically slow because of the multiple misses and leaving on the popper. So for me, the whole stage set up right there, and I'd factored it ahead of time to know that it wasn't a stage where you wanted to lose a lot of points. Even in every box, I was trying to very carefully shoot as good points as possible. And a key factor was to move into the position, to not wait till you got set up to shoot, where he had to jump up there and go boom, 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 shoot fast to get gone. Actually start shooting while I was moving, which effectively gives you a longer time to shoot, and that way I could shoot a few better points. And today I luck out and get away with it. That's about it.
Thanks.
This stage was really tricky, especially in the wet. You start with your gun holstered in condition 1, sitting with your arms folded and your legs crossed in box A. You are at the bottom of a steep ramp about 7 feet tall. On the start signal, you draw and engage the 2 poppers. When they're down, you climb the ramp and engage the targets 1 to 6 in any order as you see them. The trouble is that you can't see target 1 or 2 from the top of the wall, so you have to get back down to ground level as quickly and safely as possible. As usual, 2 hits are needed on each target. Our first climber is Lewis Horta from Brazil.
Are you ready?
He completed that in a time of 11.28 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 6.29. Next over the wall is Doug Koenig, with the run that left him in 5th place on this stage. Doug took 9.67 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 7.76. Here's Todd Jarrett.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Todd's time was 10.13 seconds, and his hit factor was 7.89. That was good enough to leave him in 4th place on this stage. And finally, here's Jerry Barnhart. His time was the fastest of the stage at 9.52 seconds, and his hit factor was 8.09. This was good enough to earn him 2nd place overall on this stage. Gasoline Alley is a field stage. You start behind the car, standing in the box with your hands by your sides. Spread over the course there are a total of 9 full or partial targets, 2 bobbers and 1 popper. The targets are either hidden behind cars, doors or windows, and the bobbers are activated by opening one of the doors. On the start signal, you draw your gun and engage the targets in any order, with a minimum of 2 hits on each. By the end of the week, people had renamed this stage DQ Alley because of the large number of disqualifications it caused. Our first competitor is Old Dommergaard from Denmark.
Are you ready? Stand by.
He did that in 23.94 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 4.85. This is Matthew McClure with the run that put him in 5th place on this stage.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Matthew's time was 16.14 seconds, and he had a hit factor of 7.06. Next on the line is Bob Dunkley.
Are you ready? Stand by.
He did that in 17.74 seconds with a hit factor of 5.69. And here's Rob Latham's run, which earned him 4th place on this stage.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Rob took 16.31 seconds and he had a hit factor of 7.11. Our last shooter here is Michael Voigt.
Stand by.
He completed that in 15.8 seconds and he had a hit factor of 7.15. This put him in 3rd place on this stage. Guided tour is a field stage. You start on the top deck of a bus sitting at the front. Your gun is holstered in condition 1. There are a total of 12 targets and 4 poppers spread out around the bus. When you hear the start signal, you engage the targets in any order, shooting as many as possible from the top of the bus. Targets 1 and 2 must only be shot from on top of the bus. Incidentally, the bus was loaned to us by Southend Council and was returned to them for normal duties after the competition without any damage. Our first shooter on this final stage is Colette Barnes.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Colette did that in 28.16 seconds and had a hit factor of 4.62. Next on deck is Merle Eddington, with a run that earned him 2nd place on this stage.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Merle ran that in 20.24 seconds with a hit factor of 7.71. And this is Matthew McClure.
Are you ready? Stand by.
That took 20.32 seconds and Matt's hit factor was 7.38. This is Sharon Zafiro Kimbrell from the United States.
Thank
Are you ready? Stand by.
Sharon's time was 25.53 seconds and she had a hit factor of 5.99. Sharon finished 4th overall in the ladies section of this competition. Next on top is Robbie Latham.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Rob did that in 20.12 seconds and he had a hit factor of 7.65. This was good enough to put him in 3rd place on this stage. And finally, let's watch Jerry Barnhart's winning run.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Jerry did that in 20.05 seconds and he had a hit factor of 7.83. Did you notice that he shot over both barricades with his strong hand only? Well, that was the end of the match for the shooters. But for the statistics office, work carried on late into the night, as it did on all of the evenings throughout the entire competition. After a long, closely fought week, the 1993 IPSC World Champion is Matthew McClure. A man versus man competition was held on the last day of the championship. It consisted of the top 16 individual shooters from the competition and also the top ladies.
We're about to start the shootout, which is the terminal event of the occasion to determine who is the overall first place champion.
Matthew McClure and Rob Latham were the first in this knockout event, and they were also the last.
Fire! Fire! Fire!
After a grueling 2.5-hour competition, we're now back where we started. Matthew McClure versus Robbie Latham in the final shootout.
Fire!
After this performance, Matthew left us in no doubt as to why he is now the world champion. This has been a great year for Matthew. First the US Championship and now straight on to the World Championship. Well done, Matt.